Stay tuned. Coming up, it's a flashback to episode 116 and part one of my two-part interview with Ryan Pyle, a battalion chief with Shawnee Fire Department, sharing the details of a horrific line-of-duty death of Firefighter John Glaser. But first, let's hear from our amazing sponsor, Midwest Fire. Every day, the hard-working men and women at Midwest Fire build the most reliable firefighting apparatus to be found anywhere. Their customers know a well-built fire engine means lives and property saved. Midwest Fire, a factory direct manufacturer dedicated to helping you extinguish fire before it becomes a raging beast. To learn more about what fuels their passion, visit MidwestFire.com. Hello and welcome to the Situational Awareness Matters Show, episode 338. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple. We want to help you see the bad things coming in time to prevent bad outcomes. Today's feature segment is sponsored by our new online training platform, Gassaway Virtual Training. We now have 33 online programs for your members. Some of these programs are live events presented virtually, and some are pre-recorded programs. To learn more, visit samatters.com website and click on the Virtual Training tab. Okay, let's jump into our feature segment, a flashback to episode 116 and part one of my two-part interview with Ryan Pyle, a battalion chief with the Shawnee Fire Department, sharing the details of a horrific line-of-duty death of Firefighter John Glaser. One note before we begin, this interview was recorded before I was doing the show in video and audio formats. So this discussion with Ryan Pyle is audio only. Okay, in today's feature segment, I'm interviewing Battalion Chief Ryan Pyle of the Shawnee, Kansas Fire Department. On May 22, 2010, John Glaser, a 33-year-old career firefighter, died while conducting a primary search at a residential fire. Firefighter Glaser vomited in his SCBA facepiece and then removed it, causing him to inhale products of combustion. The fire was reported at 13408 West 75th Court, and when the firefighters arrived, they found the home burning out of control. Neighbors told firefighters that they thought two people and a dog were inside. Firefighters began attack on the fire and searching the home, and as they were searching the home just a little bit after 9 p.m., a mayday call went out because a firefighter was missing. I'm going to jump into the feature segment now, but when I get done, stick around because I'm going to announce the upcoming Situational Awareness Matters Tour Stop event schedule. Okay, let's jump into our feature segment with Ryan Pyle from the Shawnee, Kansas Fire Department talking about their line-of-duty death event.
On May 22nd, 2010, we work for career department, suburb of Kansas City. We operate kind of as a county department. They're separate departments in the county, but it's a centralized dispatching system, centralized ambulance. We train together frequently, and rarely do we run calls as far as structure fires that are just in our just with our jurisdiction alone. So that's kind of an important part of the story because it factors in later. And for those were able to read the NIOSH report on this, you'll see different jurisdictions, but we all operate under the same guidelines. That day I was stationed at Station 71. And out of Station 71, we run a ladder truck and a engine and a battalion chief. That particular day, we were at our minimums, which is 3 and 3. That's something that's fairly common, especially that time of year, getting into the summertime. Mm-hmm. John Glaser and my driver and I were had a fairly busy day. We work so closely with the adjoining jurisdictions. There's no green space in between our streets. It's all Johnson County, Kansas has become all one big mass. So we're constantly somewhere else. And in that particular day, we were at the Overland Park Fire Department, and we were filling in for them while they had an event, what they call the Special Needs Day. And this is something we've done on an annual basis to assist them and support their cause. And we were there that day while we were at their Station 41. I believe we ran a couple calls, fairly regular, just EMS calls. The company back at Station 71 had a really busy day. They ran a infant drowning, a day, a 2-year-old. It was it was a busy day.
Hold on a second. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
So essentially, your engine crew, which was an on-duty crew, was lent over to Overland Park because they had an event going on, and you just kind of filled in at their station for that period of time. Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, that's correct.
Is that pretty normal for that region to do that kind of thing?
Yeah, it is. It's very normal for us. Again, we operate as a almost a county department without actually being one. We provide mutual aid. It's as a matter of fact, it's a matter of practice that it's almost an automatic aid. Wow. With the centralized dispatching system, mm-hmm. You get a complement of essentially the 4 closest units on a structure fire. So it's a really great system.
Nice.
Works really well. I can ask for additional units, but on the initial dispatch, I'll typically get the closest units to the alarm regardless of jurisdiction. So for us to go over to another organization to fill in for them, or if they have a structure fire, or to assist them, that's completely normal operations for us.
Nice. Okay, so you guys are covering Overland Park. They're on an event, and you said you ran a few calls, but your regular Station 71 was pretty busy that day.
Yeah, Station 71 was extremely busy that day. They had some fairly traumatic calls, which we weren't involved in. Over there at Station 41 was, a fairly normal day. We ran a few calls, EMS based, and this is something that typically you probably wouldn't talk about on your radio show, but they have a great barbecue place near there, and we went to eat lunch there. Well, John was a triathlete, so he was in phenomenal shape, and so the driver and I we ate the barbecue because we love it, and that's applicable to this story because of what happened to John. Well, that day he chose not to eat the barbecue. So we finished our assignment there, came back to quarters, and I can't remember exactly how many calls we ran, but it continued to be a busy day. We had just finished dinner, doing our thing, getting everything cleaned up, getting our station duties done, and the truck got sent on an automatic alarm at the address where John ultimately passed. Quickly after the alarm, it got upgraded to a regular alarm, and that kind of started the ball rolling on this thing.
Okay, now what was the so initially the automatic alarm would be one company, and that'd be you guys?
Yeah. The truck was sent on the automatic alarm. Shortly thereafter, Engine 71, the company I was on, was sent and upgraded to a house fire, along with Quint 72, which is a Quint out of Station 72 in Shawnee, and Engine 92, which is out of Lenexa, Kansas. Again, that plays into that initial alarm, getting the closest companies to that incident, and that sent a battalion chief out of Shawnee and the battalion chief out of Lenexa and a medic unit.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, take it from there.
Okay. The truck got about probably 2 blocks out, reported smoke showing from their location. So obviously we knew we had a working fire. They were receiving numerous calls on the incident. Battalion 71 arrives, reports a working fire from a garage on the Bravo side. This was a large house, 6,000 square feet. Had a driveway on the Bravo side that went down to underneath a sub basement and a garage. In addition to what you would consider probably a typical driveway on the Alpha side of the house, where his daily drivers were. The gentleman was a collector of antique cars and had at least three antique cars in the bottom basement. That's where the point of origin was. We were the truck, because of the order of how they showed up. They were originally signed search. We were getting reports of an elderly gentleman and a dog inside. So they were originally assigned search, and as we arrived, we were going to establish fire attack. Well, this is one of those things that, they always say that it's a litany of things that lead up to the incident, and I'm not sure if this had much bearing on it, but the truck had already initiated fire attack, which put us on search. It's been a standard practice for us to have the driver stay with the truck. So John and I were the company that was assigned search, and that was the assignments we were given. And so there was a little bit of confusion initially, and that can cause a little bit of a problem. We got that sorted out fairly quickly. We had heavy smoke from basically all parts of the structure. To paint a little bit better picture of the structure, again, custom built house, large in size, tile roof, and a significant amount of fire load, in the basement area. Again, they had a significant amount of fire showing from the Bravo side. I went up to the front door, kind of peeked around to see exactly what we had, and there was a security door and 2 giant side lights on the side. I advised command that forcible entry would be needed. So I took out the side lights. I had John go to Engine 71 and take a line off that truck, and we proceeded to try to make it into the Alpha side of the structure. Upon opening the door and the skylights, we had thick, black, turbulent smoke coming out of both of those side lights. We went in. John had the camera. He was in front of me. He had the line. The line was not charged. Typically, for us, especially at that time, taking a line in on a search was really officer's discretion. We didn't do it as a matter of practice. It was one of those things that if you felt like you needed it, you could take it. That night, I didn't know what we were going to run into. Given the amount of fire they had on the Bravo side, I really didn't want to take any chances. So we went in.
Did you guys, when you were getting ready to make the entry, you talked about the smoke condition. Was it zero visibility for you on entry?
Absolutely zero visibility.
Okay.
Smoke from floor to ceiling. The foyer was open all the way to the top, the second floor ceiling, all the way down. It was zero visibility. And come to find out, the gentleman had a dog, which plays into the story here in a minute. The gentleman had a dog, and he left his door open from the basement area to the upstairs where the dog could come and go as he pleased. And that, you didn't know at the time, but after everything was said and done, that served as a chimney. So the significant amount of fire and smoke they had was coming directly up that stairwell. So we had a significant amount of heat. We made it in. We started a right-hand search, doing the camera. Went down the hallway, and as we got about 25 feet in, I could feel both sides of the hall. It was a really narrow hall. The house was oddly arranged, but it was built specifically with his needs in mind. He was an elderly gentleman. Yeah, so again, a very narrow hallway. I could feel both sides of the hall. As we made our way, checking with the imaging camera, we come up to a dog right at the entrance of a laundry room, and the dog was making some strange moaning noise, not like a bark, obviously in distress. Had we not been so close to the doorway, I probably would have, unfortunately had to make that decision to bypass the dog. But I told John, grab the dog, let's get him out to the company that's waiting to assist with search. They were at this time at the front door. So John did so. He dropped the line right where we found the dog, came back out, dropped the dog. On the radio traffic, you can hear me say, we're coming out together. I need somebody to grab the dog, and we're going to go back in and finish our search. We did that again. John had the camera. We did the same thing again. He went in the front. I was in the back. We straddled the line. We get about halfway as far as we'd been. So if I had to guess, probably no more than 10 or 15 feet inside the structure. And all of a sudden, John said, "Help me." And I reached out in front of me, couldn't feel him. I reached to the right. I felt a wall. I reached to the left. I felt a wall. And so in my mind, I knew that something was wrong. I couldn't put all the pieces together at that time, but he was saying it in a voice that, like you and I are talking in. So I knew that he was in trouble.
No, you say a voice like you and I are talking, like not muffled through a face piece.
Exactly.
Okay. Like his face piece is off.
Right.
Okay.
And, I'm not sure that I can say with any conviction that I knew that night at that time that he was saying it with his mask off. I'm not sure it registered right away, but it didn't take long after that I, within minutes, it came to me, that was too clear of a voice. Mm-hmm. So
was he in front of you or behind you?
He was in front of me.
Okay.
Yeah. So given what I thought I knew again, which is kind of a dangerous thing. And then, that's one of the things I learned that night. You think you know something, and you think you have the information you need. If I touched a wall on the right and I touched a wall on the left, and I knew I was in a hallway and I had already reached out in front of me, my thought was the only place he could have gone was in front of me. And at that point, I waited a couple seconds of yelling his name with no response, and I called a mayday. And that kind of initiated things. I don't know if this is a good time in the interview to talk about this, but one thing that I've done this presentation several places throughout the country just to get that message out there of what happened to John that evening. And one of the things that I think is really important, I think we do a lot of training in the fire service, at least our organization did, on calling a mayday for yourself, or when you have a situation where you absolutely knew what happened. And what I mean by that, Dr. Gasaway, is, you've been throughout the country, and I'm sure you've seen all sorts of mayday scenarios. Well, we typically train for, I fell through a floor, I'm in the basement, I call a mayday. Or I'm tangled up, I need help, so I call a mayday. Things like that. What I encourage people to do, and something to think about, is what do you do when you're calling a mayday on somebody else and you don't have the information you need? When you can give your location, your unit, you can give, what your assignment was, but what do you do when you don't know what happened? And that's a situation we found ourselves in on May 22nd, 2010, is I called a mayday on a guy and I had absolutely no idea what happened to him.
So how did that mayday sound? Because after you call a mayday, you have to say something. So I mean, I totally understand what you're saying, and you're right. We don't train on that. So talk me through, what you're thinking as you're calling the mayday and thinking to yourself, all right, I've called a mayday. Now, how do I describe why I called a mayday? Because it isn't for you, and you're spot on. That's not what we practice.
Right. Well, it was, to be honest with you, it was poorly done. I mean, and that's exposing myself a little bit, but I think that's important. When we're talking about something like this, I said, search mayday. And basically at that point, I worked off of assumptions. Again, I thought that John had to go ahead of me because he didn't come over me, and he didn't, he wasn't right in front of me because I had checked those areas. And so the company's coming in after the mayday was acknowledged, which was very quick on the part of the incident commander. The company's coming in. I simply had no information to give them. And I can't tell you how horrible of a feeling that is. And I remember talking to the captain that was coming in on Quint 72 to assist me with search initially, but what he ended up by proxy becoming a RIT supervisor. And I just remember him telling him, we're right here. We were right here. He said, help me, and he's gone. So to answer your question, that was just about all I could say. I knew he didn't fall through the floor. I knew that nothing fell on him, but it was nothing other other than that, I could give them no information, and that was a horrible feeling.
Well, okay, he didn't fall through the floor. Nothing fell on him. What are you thinking? I mean, you got to be wondering, where did he go, right?
Yeah, and ahead of me, because as I said before, ahead of me was areas we had just been. I mean, literally within minutes, we had, we came out, we went back the exact same way we came. So I knew there was a garage. And we were on a right-hand search. I knew there was what I now know is an office, but I knew there was a small room off to our right. I knew there was a laundry room because that's where we found the dog. What I didn't know was on the other side of the hallway was a set of double doors, windowed double doors that led to a sitting room, which led to pocket doors that led to a bedroom, with another set of doors that led to a bathroom, and again two sets of doors leading to a sitting room and a closet. And that's where this gentleman spent the majority of his time. It wasn't on the second floor. It wasn't your typical living quarters. His existence was pretty much on that first floor. And that's what I didn't know, and that's where John went.
So why? Do you have any idea as to what drove that?
Well, we do now.
Okay.
At the time, I didn't. Again, this is another oddity. And earlier in the presentation, I talked about John not eating lunch, and he ate a moderate dinner because John was a great athlete. What ended up happening? John vomited in his mask, and during that process of vomiting, he ripped his mask off. And once that happened, investigators believe, help me was all he could get out, and that was the last thing we heard. Took him about, I believe, 9 minutes or so to find John. They got me out of there. I was completely out of air. It took that period of time to find him. A couple interesting things about it. His radio was on him. The radio was on the right channel. Until they got right on top of him, they never heard his pass device. He was laying on his pass device, and they literally were right on top of him. So these things, as this incident was unfolding, there was a lot of things that didn't make sense. If he threw up, why didn't I hear a gag? Why did I not hear him yell? Why did I not hear a pass device? So all these things made for me a very difficult situation, because all of those things you think of when you think of Mayday, they just weren't there. Again, starting out, I didn't have the information that I needed to pass on to the crews. I didn't hear a pass device. I didn't hear anything. Matter of fact, nobody heard anything from John after that point. Numerous attempts were made to contact him, and there was no contact. They obviously analyzed the air cylinder and pack, and he turned it off, turned it back on. It was a very short time before he became very disoriented. I believe that was that's what got us to where we were. Yeah, ultimately he vomited in his mask and pulled his mask off.
Now, when you guys were in there, you said you had a thermal imager. Did he have it, or did you have it?
He did. He had it. So that's I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's one of my talking points. And I'm not. I tell people when I talk to people about this incident, I tell them the story. I tell them what it meant to me. I don't try to speak from the incident commander's standpoint. I don't try to speak from the RIT supervisor standpoint, because I don't think that's doing it justice. But speaking from my experience, I encourage people to have the conversation about who has the camera. That night, when John went, when he took off his mask and what I believe he thought he was exiting the building, he just went the wrong way. Unfortunately, my eyes went with him. Now, we ended up finding the camera later, but I encourage you to have those conversations around the table at dinner. All right, who has the camera? If you don't have a policy on it, or it's left to the discretion of the officer, somebody should have that conversation and say, we need to know who's going to have the camera and have some justification why. In our department, I think in large part now the officer has the camera and sets back a little bit as opposed and manages their companies, as opposed to at that night he and I were right on top of each other, and when he took off, he took the camera with him. Mm-hmm. So that it left me at a disadvantage.
Now, when you called the mayday, was there already established on the scene a RIT team, or did that kind of get impromptu organized? I don't know where this is at in the timing of other companies coming in and stuff. So, who served as the RIT team? Was it already established, or did they ad hoc it together?
Well, it was in the process of being established. You're waiting for companies to arrive. Mm-hmm. So Clint 72's officer, who was an extremely seasoned, extremely knowledgeable, still he's retired now and a chief in a different organization, but there would have been nobody better to have as a RIT supervisor than him. And by proxy, he became the RIT supervisor. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, it wasn't set up yet. This unfolded within, I can't remember. I'd have to look at the timeline again. It was 6-7 minutes upon our arrival. Wow. So this was, it was quick. It was real quick. And regardless of the size of the building, I think that people get caught up in that a lot. They go, well, the bigger the structure, you have some challenges. I was in a 6,000 square foot house, but I lost John in 200 square feet of that. Mm-hmm. So don't let the size of the building or the size of the house give you some false sense of security. Mm-hmm. Because once he took his mask off, we were on a very, very, very short window. Man, we just couldn't get to him in time.
Did the RIT team have a thermal imager too?
Yes, they did. The captain at the time became RIT supervisor. He did an excellent job of allocating companies. He did a great job of having people ready to come in and to monitor the fire. And again, another one of those, I may be getting ahead of you here, but another one of those lessons learned when a mayday happens, I think we can train for it. We can be as prepared as we can be. But one of the things I think gets lost is, you've got a real dangerous situation that hasn't been mitigated happening and now you have a mayday on top of it. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you from my standpoint, once John went missing, the fire, and which had by now had made its way to the attic and had come through the roof. So we had fire below us, fire above us. that was the last thing on my mind. And I think that's a dangerous situation, and I think that's how we get into situations where we lose more than one guy. It compounds itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm just being honest, I didn't think about the fire.
No, you were focused on its rescue.
I was focused on rescue, which can be a real dangerous rabbit hole. But the RIT supervisor did a great job of managing both of those things. He wouldn't let companies go anywhere that he didn't know the status of the fire. So you got to have that guy. You got to have that person that is removed from the immediate mayday and can manage those things. Because if not, you got everybody wanting to go in.
Right.
I'm good friends with John Sullivan from Worcester, Massachusetts. He and I have had a pretty long relationship, even prior to John dying. And that's one of the things that he always says is, 2 went in. Okay, and then 2 more went in. Couldn't find them. 2 more went in. How long would that have kept going? And the fire was getting worse in Worcester, and until the night that we had the fire that we lost John, I could appreciate it, but now I fully understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Had we not had the RIT supervisor and good safety officers on the outside really monitoring the fire, everybody would have been focused on the mayday, and one could have turned into multiples real quick.
Oh, yeah. All right. So the RIT team comes in, takes them, I think you said 9 minutes to find him?
Yeah, about thereabouts. I don't have I can't remember the exact amount of time, but yeah, thereabouts.
Okay. All right, talk us through what happens then.
Okay, well, they announced that they found him. They bring him out the front door. Johnson County Med Act is right at the front door awaiting him, and there's things that bring this to life, and that was one of those moments for me. I was outside at this point. Obviously, I wasn't the best person to have in there at that time. After that, I wasn't going to go back in. I'd given him the information I could. We had very good, capable firefighters in there looking for him, and I was I didn't have a company for one, but one of those things that always sticks out in my mind is watching them bring John out. That's something that I'll never get out of my mind, and I don't want anybody else to ever have to go through that. Bringing one of your firefighters out that is your responsibility, that you've made an oath to do everything you can to protect them, and he didn't have a helmet. He had soot on his face, so you can imagine what it looks like. And they put him on the stretcher and begin compressions right away.
How are you feeling at that point?
Surreal. I felt like I was in a dream. I felt like I had spent a lot of time with Everyone Goes Home, and I had spent so much time talking about it. But I think human nature is I don't think I was naive to think it would never happen to me, but I felt like I had prepared myself and our companies to be in the best position for it not to happen. So there was a lot going through my mind at that time. It just seemed like a dream that it just didn't seem real.
All right, so they get him to the ambulance, and off he goes. You remain at the scene. You no longer have a company. So what do you do? What would you do there?
The incident commander and I went to the hospital, and we went by ambulance. The police department had blocked off every intersection from the scene all the way to the local hospital, and I remember coming in the doors to the emergency room, and I looked over and I could see him working on John. And that again, another one of those surreal moments. And I remember that night hearing things getting dropped, and this was a different level of patient care. Not that they don't give good patient care to everybody, but this was a different level. And through our debriefing periods, one of the nurses from Shawnee Mission reached out to me, and as I was passing John, I remember yelling, "Come on, Johnny," something to that effect. And she said that when she heard me say that, she dropped a vial of, I don't know if it was what it was, of medication, or she said that's when, to her, it became very real. And she realized what she was doing. She wasn't just working on another patient. This was a 33-year-old firefighter. So when something happens like this, I'm not sure anybody understands, unless they've been through it, how far-reaching it is. How many people it touches in the community. Obviously, the family, the fire department family, the fire departments around you, even to the nurses at the trauma center. It's definitely a hard thing to do. They came into the room I was in, and they told me John was gone. And that I can't really describe that in words. That made it very real.
Let's go back to the house fire for just a moment. Was the owner home?
No, he wasn't. Much like a lot of the incidents we go to, where somebody says there's a victim. Mm-hmm. No, he was out with some friends.
Thank you again to my guest, Shawnee Fire Battalion Chief Ryan Pyle. Remember that this is part 1 of a 2-part episode. Since 2007, SA Matters instructors have helped more than 1,200 organizations and 87,000 individuals improve high-risk decision-making, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, highway workers, aviation workers, oil refinery operators, and more. If you or someone you care about works in a high-risk, high-consequence decision-making environment, then we are here to help to improve their safety and survival, and to help them accomplish the most important mission of all, and that's to go home to the ones who love them. Since the start of the pandemic, I've had some amazing opportunities to present my programs on a virtual platform to groups ranging from 6 to 400. Thank you to the organizations that have allowed me to offer virtual training for their employees. If you're interested in hosting a virtual program or a live program when the pandemic is over, just click on the Contact Us tab at the top of the SA Matters homepage, and I will give you a call. Remember to check the show notes for how to subscribe to our newsletter, how to follow us on social media. There we share ideas about how to improve situational awareness and how to make better decisions under stress. We also discuss how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. Well, that's it. Episode 338 of the Situational Awareness Matters show is complete. Thank you again to my guest, Shawnee Fire Battalion Chief Ryan Pyle. Thank you to our amazing platinum sponsor for 6 years now, Midwest Fire. Thank you to our feature segment sponsor, Gasway Virtual Training, and thank you to our associate sponsor, Chief Miller. And most importantly, thank you, the listeners and viewers of this show, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters show with Dr. Richard Gasaway. If you're interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit his website, samatters.com. If you're interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for a program, or if you would like to be a guest on his show, click the Contact Us tab at the top of the homepage.